Hello and welcome to another episode of Slightly Mental Podcast. Today, my guest is Anna Lampart. Hello, Anna. How are you today?
Hi, Sam. I'm good. It's nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you very much for your time. I'm super happy to have you here and have a conversation about what are we going to talk about today?
We are going to talk about shame.
Yes, we are. Shame is a very interesting subject, and I have to say, I've done a little bit of thinking before the podcast about questions I can ask you,
hmm
and it's one of those subjects that is really we sort of all know what it is and how it feels, but it's not really easy to explain, right? Put it into
hmm
words. It's one of those subjects. Why are you so interested in shame specifically?
I think it's because it's one of those subjects that just lingers everywhere, and every one of us has had situations where they have felt it, where they have been shamed, and it's one of these subjects that is talked about. There's a whole movement going on now, but I feel that there's still so much to be said because we experience it all differently.
hmm
And it's important for everyone to really truly embrace what that definition of shame is for them.
That's a great segue to my second question. So, how would you describe shame?
How would I, for myself, you mean, or
Yeah,
just, or
how?
generally?
Yeah, generally, or from your perspective, how would you describe shame?
Generally, it's that feeling that we tend to feel when we've done something wrong and we've been found out and we can't take it back, and we just feel like we want to fall into the ground and never rise again, and we just, or you feel your cheeks burning, or that your stomach is all in a knot. Personally, for me and my whole life experience, and I have felt shame many times, I've come to the point where I've tried to redefine it completely, not letting myself get sucked into the general definition, but
hmm
having transferred it to my own preference, I guess, in the way that I deal with it later on. And it's more of, I guess, a guideline of whether I'm sticking to a certain path and doing things the way that I want to be doing, that I should be doing. And in that, I try and go through all the feelings that arise. Sometimes the painful ones, sometimes the ones that you might be embarrassed of, sometimes the ones that you might not even think you had the capacity to feel at a certain moment, but trying to navigate myself to the other side.
Okay. When you said in the beginning that general description of feeling
hmm
like your cheeks are burning and you want to fall in the ground, that felt really familiar. Uh, I
mm
I think we feel shame a lot, especially when we're kids and adolescent, because we are um, when you grow up, you sort of redefine a lot of those stuff and you become more comfortable with yourself. But when you're a kid, a lot of those values are imposed by your family and people around you. So even though if certain behaviors feel like normal to you, people will shame you for something. I think there's a
mm
lot of shame, especially around sexuality. Would you agree?
Absolutely, and I think it's something that comes with every part of every kind of stage of life that we go into. And around sexuality, even though there's a lot of talk about it, there's a lot of letting go of inhibitions, there's a lot of, I don't know, ways to express ourselves sexually. Even there's still a lot of shame around it, for everyone. And yeah, go on.
Ah, keep going.
Lost my train of thought. Um, and it's, I think one of the main things, and perhaps I should have started also with kind of the introduction with this, is that it's really important to redefine the inner shame that we feel in regard to our own values and how I'm doing something, and also the
Mhm.
outer shame if somebody's trying to shame us, but we don't necessarily agree with that. And it's important to differentiate and distinguish these two things, because it's they can kind of, you can have them butt heads, but you can also, they can sometimes kind of intertwine and form this really immense overwhelming sense of discomfort that we then have to deal with in regards to being shamed. So it's like it's coming from you from the inside, and somebody's shaming you from the outside, and it's just difficult to grasp what's happening at that moment.
I think that it's quite surprising and really strange that, thinking about sexuality, we're in
Mhm.
21st century, and you can go online and you can see all kind of videos these days, all kind of pornographic material.
Yes, you can.
But when you we still feel so much shame around our own sexuality, identity, who we are. You can't really have a sort of healthy talk about your sexuality, because people look at you like, what it is, like, what are you doing? You're a pervert because you talk about
Yes.
sexuality. But then you can open your computer and see everything, right? So that's
Yeah,
a bit strange, in my opinion. Yeah.
I agree. I agree, and especially since we're kind of going that way, it's really sad to see still that there are certain stereotypes around this way of thinking. So, for example, it's more, I guess, it's considered to be more normal if a man, watches porn or
Mm.
expresses himself in a way or shows his appreciation for women in a certain way. But
Or
where when
sleeps
then
around, yeah.
exactly. And then when you have a woman who likes sex, who's comfortable in her own body, who likes to dress a certain way, who just feels comfortable with her own femininity and sexuality, there's all sorts of name calling and things that spring to mind suddenly just because she's not afraid to express herself that way.
Yeah, it just shows double standards in our society. I could never understand that, because yes, some people say, when a guy sleeps around with many women versus a girl sleeping around with many men, they
Mhm.
compare it to one key opening many locks, and then one lock being opened by many keys. But I think as long as you do it consciously, and you have relationships safely, and you are open with people that you want to have sexual relationships with, I think, more power to you. You can do whatever you want. I don't think that we should look into somebody else's bedroom and tell them what to do, and that's really strange.
I agree. And one more thing that I would like to add to what you just said, and as long as it's consensual, if people
Yeah,
enter these types of relationships and they know the ground rules and they talk about their likes and dislikes and they can express themselves, there really is no shame in that
yeah.
whatsoever.
I think polyamorous relationships and open relationships are more and more visible, they're more and more common. Which in a
Mhm.
way, it's not bad, it's not good. For some people it's suitable, and for some people it's completely a no-no. And it all comes down to your values, I think. What do you think about that?
I think so too, but it also makes me wonder if it's one of those things that has always been around, but it's never really been talked about. It's always been kind of hush hush. We do this kind of stuff. We live in. I mean, people would, in I don't know, in the 50s, 60s, and so on, live the perfect model family life. But affairs would still happen, and so on and so forth. I'm just wondering if it's just emerging now to see the light of day. That this is what happens, and then if it's consensual, and then if it's in line with our values, for example, that we are adventurous,
Hmm.
and some people on the one hand long for stability in a grounded, let's say, the family unit relationship where you have a wife and a husband and the children. However, the roles that we take on in our lives, so for example, the mother and father and husband and wife in that relation, the grounded relationship, will also see each other not only as husband, wife, mother, father, but also as humans who want to be able to express themselves. Now, if those two people can have a consensual relationship that they want to broaden their horizons, let's put it this way, and it's all okay and it's fair game, then technically, if everybody says it's okay, there should be no shame around that. However, if you think about it, even though this is in line with these people's values and they're both okay with it, they take proper precautions and they keep their life in order. Is it something that's advertised?
Well, I
Wi-
haven't seen any adverts. Okay. Well, you know,
among friends.
I've
Do you
seen
have friends?
condoms and Viagra, but I don't think.
Yeah, exactly. So would you have friends coming over for dinner and say, "Do you know what? We're swingers. We like to swing."
Or some people are really open about it, and I really
Some are.
like it. Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
funny because usually people who are sexually open and people who are in general open, they have no
Hmm.
problem with talking about that subject. It's like they are more connected with themselves, and they are okay with it. They don't judge themselves, which is something that I really
Exactly.
admire. Like,
And you know what? They not only do not judge themselves, but they don't judge others. And I feel that there's this wonderful platform of compassion and kindness and understanding that is absent when we tend to, look down on people for doing things
mm,
that way. And that's kind of when that shame comes in. But the beauty of it is these people that live a certain lifestyle are so open that they don't actually care if they're being
yeah,
judged or not. And that's when the magic happens. I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm doing it my way. I feel safe. I feel fulfilled. I'm not hurting anybody. And I'm fine. And that's beautiful.
yeah, I agree. You know, everybody um, should be able to do whatever they want as long as they don't harm anybody.
Yeah.
Um, I can see a clear connection to sexuality in here. Some people are still not okay with homosexuality
Hmm.
or bisexuality or whatever. And I'm thinking, why do I have a right to tell somebody who they should sleep with if I don't want anybody to tell me who I should sleep with? You know what I mean? It's like leave and let live. I don't care
Mm.
what you do, but that relates. People still have problem with because John loves Brian, you know, and it's wrong. Why? Where's that coming from? What do you think?
That's one of the human mysteries that really baffles me. And I mean, on the one hand, it's um I don't know, maybe it's the culture that I was brought up in, but there's always been this kind of premise that we always love to tell other people how to live their lives. It
Mm,
doesn't matter what our life looks like if it's a complete mess. We have this righteous kind of moral obligation to tell people you shouldn't be doing that.
yeah,
And it kind of makes us feel better about ourselves. It doesn't matter what our life looks like and how we're living it if we even want to do the same. But I think maybe it's about, that part where people actually have the courage to live their lives the way they want to, and others that really judge it don't.
yeah. I agree with you. We are quick to point fingers at other people and say, "Don't do this, don't do that," and usually we point out the same things that we do. And a good example is American Beauty. You
Hmm.
remember the movie? The
Yes, I do.
father is shaming, and I think he's very negative to his son because he knows he's homosexual, but he himself is gay. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? So we like to
Yeah.
project all that stuff. It's really weird. Where do you think religion sits in that? Do you think religion have any influence on shame?
I think it has a lot of influence on shame. I think it programs us to be shame, receptors, because it's so easy to control people to believe certain things and then to react a certain way. And I think if we look, back in time, religion had a huge, huge impact. I think moving forward, it probably won't be the same. I know coming from Poland, because you are also Polish, from a very religious
And the secret is
country.
out.
The secret is out, yeah. Very religious country. I mean, more and more people are turning away, not only from the church, but also from faith itself. Therefore, creating a whole new mindset and
Yeah.
way of looking at life, shame included, and redefining it for themselves rather than taking on a very old way of thinking and just copy pasting it. I mean, just you having asked me that question sends me all the way back to, school and religion class, where we had a nun come in to teach us things. And we had to be separated from the boys during these lessons. And she told us to, when you're taking a shower, do not touch yourself too much when you're washing yourself.
Because you're gonna have hairy palms and stuff like that.
It's
You're gonna
exactly.
go blind.
And it was just, it was one of those things where we were sitting. And I remember having some girls in class. There's in a group, in a class, or whatever. There's always those kids that are a little bit more mature
Mhm.
in their way of thinking. And I remember this girl, one of those girls, thinking, "What the fuck are we talking about here?" And she was just, "No, no, 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 no. I will wash myself how I want to, and as many times as I want to." And she was having a discussion with us, and it turned really, really ugly. But building up that shame, and the way that she was saying it and teaching us, it wasn't a situation where we felt that we could ask questions or
Mhm.
negotiate or anything. It was just, this is how it is. This is how I'm going to tell you how it's going to be, and you are going to follow if you want to be good girls, if you want to be good students, if you want to be just good people.
So they don't create this space of allowing you to explore, even thinking about sexuality. It's like, no, this is wrong. You cannot do this. And I think the danger of that is because we feel we are all sexual humans,
Mm-hmm.
and we feel certain urges. We feel certain, we have feelings. We have certain thoughts, imagination, and
Yeah.
fantasies. And when you start thinking, even, and those thoughts come to your head, and you have been told since you were, let's say, 6 or 8, until you're a teenager, that this is wrong, I think it has a potential to generate a really strong internal conflict, and it's really not healthy. What do you think about that?
I totally agree. I think it creates this conflict, which leads people to think there's something wrong with them because they have urges, desires, fantasies, and they feel the need to explore these things, whether it be online or in real life. But it just creates this kind of premise: oh, there must be something wrong with me because I think about this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and
Ex-
it it just kind of closes the whole discussion off.
yeah.
Not wanting to share it with anybody, or even kind of, just talk to your friends and say, I have these dreams. I'm wondering if
Yeah.
you have the same ones, maybe. But we're terribly afraid that we're going to be judged, and our friends are going to look at us, what the hell's wrong with you, you perv, and so on and so forth. So we just kind of feel, I don't know, I'm not sure if I want to say broken, but a deep sense of something not being right with us.
And I think there's a really big danger with that. When, as you said, we come from the same culture, we grew up around the same religion, and,
Hmm.
and, and pretty much probably similar values at home. And only when I moved away and I started questioning religion, started really find out what it is about, started trying to understand it, the more I got the try to understand it and learn about religion, the more I felt repelled by it. And I'm not saying that religion is bad or good, because some
Hmm.
people need it. Like my sister is very religious, and I
Hmm.
feel that she needs that in her life as a
Yeah.
guidance. But I couldn't resist this feeling that it's all driven by shame and guilt. You can't do this because you're going to be a bad person. You can't do that because you will go to hell. You can't make any mistakes. You cannot be human, because whatever you do wrong, you're going to be punished for it.
Mm.
Shame, shame and guilt.
Shame,
Yeah.
shame, shame, shame. Know your
Yeah,
name. Yeah.
exactly.
I you know what I think a lot of people need to believe in something, and that's
Yeah,
perfectly fine. And whatever you choose, however you choose to go about it, however you choose to express your faith, your spirituality,
yeah,
is your business. I just think that the whole divine concept of religion has somehow become distorted along the way of, being controlled, trying to control people and having people be controlled and having people just, obey basically, which is awful. Like I told you before, I grew up, going to church and going to religion class. And I remember being in church one time and I thought, oh my God, this is so boring. And then I looked up at the altar and I said, I'm sorry, God, but this is really boring. And I thought, right, I'm just going to check a few things because, my grandmothers and, all my, family members, if you never say bad words, you can never curse. So I decided to try what would happen if I cursed in church. And guess what? Nothing.
You are going to hell. I have news for you.
Probably. I think when my time comes, there'll be a special kind of door, which right in the ninth circle, I will be right there.
All right, straight to the fire. Don't worry, I'll meet you there.
Awesome.
But no, staying on the subject of religion, I hope I won't get banned from because we jumped into sexuality and religion straight in there. The most, like, the third topic will be politics, and we tick all the boxes. What I wanted to say, I forgot. So we jump into religion and sexuality. Do you think there are any other areas of our life that actually can bring shame, feelings of shame?
To tell you the truth, I think it's basically every aspect of our lives, especially where those topics aside that we talked about, where we are subject to comparison, subject to judgment, and anything basically can be used against us, and we can be shamed, or we can feel shame ourselves. For example, the way that we look, body image. That's a platform that is just at times begging for it, in regard to how somebody looks, if somebody's a little bit different. I mean, now, thankfully, now we live in times when people who have unique physique features, it's lovely to see that it's now more open and people are admired for it, and that there's no standard type of, like in the 90s, supermodels had to look a specific way, and they always did. Now it's a completely different standard of beauty. You even have women who are much more mature, having their pictures taken and being on billboards and ads and stuff like that, because it's a fact of life. We look different through all of our phases of our lives, and there's nothing wrong with that. And there's no, there shouldn't be any room for shame in that. But in answering your question, I think basically we need to be really alert that every single area of our life we can be attacked, for eating a cookie in public, for example. I once saw a group of girls walking into a Costa Coffee. They were all getting coffees, and one of them decided to get herself a cupcake. Mm-hmm. All her friends, they didn't even have to say a word. They just gave her the shame look. She literally took the cupcake and chucked it in the trash without having eaten it. Yes.
Oh my God. I think there's too much judgment in our society. It's funny because on one side we have political correctness when people try to say, oh, you can't say this, you can't do this, you can't. But on the other side we have too much judgment, and I can't put my finger on it. Where is the sort of right moment between those two? Where should we? Oh dear, not an easy subject, is it?
It's a tricky one, To tell you the truth, I think first of all, we're all prone to jumping to conclusions and, and having judgments, and it's kind of unconscious bias that we have as well. Even to very, people-oriented people like you and me, we also tend to jump to conclusions sometimes and have judgment.
Yeah, I agree.
We might not, specifically let it out, but we do. Mm-hmm. And this is the moment of this pure and utter truth that happens, within yourself. And these are often I see with clients and also in myself. The hardest moments to witness is that you really need to take a look at yourself and say, all right, what is this about? Why am I judging this person? And if you really, truly, honestly take a look at yourself, it's usually because it's fear-based. And because that fear means that we aren't doing something that we would like to do. and we're just purely jealous that somebody else can do it. So for example, if there's a woman walking down the street who's wearing a beautiful red dress and everybody is looking at her, and you'll always have a group of people going, oh my God, look at her. What is she wearing? I would never
What a
go out of the house like,
slut.
exactly. I
Yeah.
would never go out of the house like that. But secretly she's going, fuck, I really wish I had the guts to pull that off. You know?
Yeah, we usually hate on people that are like we would like to be, or they have what we would like to have.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
unconsciously, yeah.
And it's, it's not even about exactly in particular what they have. It's just about the fact that they've put in the effort to get themselves to the place that they want to be. That is what is most envied, I feel, So for example, if somebody wants to take flying lessons, you'll have a bunch of people say, are you crazy? Do you want to die? I mean, you want to spend so much money and die? You can just pay a hitman to get you on the street. You have the same thrill,
Oh man.
and then secretly you're thinking, oh my God, okay, so first of all, this person can afford it. Second of all, they really want to try something new. And third of all, they have the guts to do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really wish I could do that, these aren't the feelings that we are able to really connect with internally and be able to even admit them to ourselves. That's why this whole process is really internally complicated if you think about it.
I agree 100%, and it sort of hits home because, as you
Yeah.
know, I ride bikes,
Yes.
and I had this conversation with my mom actually.
Mm-hmm.
And as a mom, she worries and she tells me, "Don't do this. What if you have an accident and this and that?" And I openly said one day, I might have been cruel on my part, but I said, honestly, even if somebody told me that I'm gonna die on a bike, I'm
Mm-hmm.
still gonna ride. Because
Mm-hmm.
I rather to have some fun out of life than sit at home and wait for the end, or getting hit by a bus, or a brick will fall on my head. You never know when it's gonna happen. So you might as well live a good life and have some experiences. After that
Sure.
conversation, she probably thought I'm a prick, but
Well,
yeah,
speaking as a mother myself, I think, deep down inside, she will understand you in a way. But there's this kind of, we're protective of people. I mean,
yeah,
I have friends who ride bikes and they love it. And yes, is it scary? We're friends. And
yeah,
yes, of course, if you tell me that you're going out on a bike and that you like to ride and perhaps you like to go really fast, of course, in the back of my mind, when I care about people, I think about, oh God, but I would never say, don't do it. Don't
yeah,
do it because you might get hurt. Don't do it. It's not about that. You can't crush people's dreams. That I'm not saying that, me saying something like that to a friend would crush their dreams, but it's just about it's better left unsaid in a way that, you say to somebody when you're going out on a bike, be safe, take care, enjoy yourself. And it's always kind of in the back of my mind because, I mean, like you rightfully said, we can go out of the house and get hit by a car and never come back.
yeah.
And it just is, but it's important to be able to do what we want to do, even though it's difficult for other people to comprehend.
Accept, yeah. Yeah, I agree. And even looking at people doing extreme sports,
Yeah.
base jumping, for example, or the
Yeah.
wingsuit flying and stuff,
Mhm.
it's it is extremely dangerous. But if you put yourself in the shoes of that person, they would rather not be here anymore than just sit at home and then have a boring life, because for them that's life, that's what fuels them, that's what makes them feel alive. The whole purpose and sense of their life is in that. Everything they do is to, for example, make money to be able to afford equipment and trip somewhere
Mm.
to another more extreme location, and so on and so on. I feel like we're walking away a little bit from shame, so I'm gonna
I think so, I think so too.
I'm gonna ask you a question just to get back on track.
Yeah, go on.
I have a tendency to go off on a tangent. What would you say is the difference between shame and guilt?
Oh my goodness, that's a good one. The
I only have
difference
good
between
questions.
it's very true. Shame and guilt. I think that guilt is the aftermath of shame. If I have to kind of personally, I mean, my own kind of personal definition.
Yeah.
I think that, and they don't necessarily have to go together.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very easy to confuse these feelings, but I think for me personally, shame is more associated with the fact that somebody's pointed something out to me that I have done wrong, or I'm being mocked or laughed at or just ridiculed in some way. Whereas guilt is more in line with my values, that I haven't done well according to my own standards.
Okay.
And this kind of sinks a little bit deeper for me. What about you? What do you think?
I thought you were going to ask me, what am I ashamed of?
No.
What I've done a little bit of digging before we started, and
Mhm.
it's, as I said, it's not an easy question. And I've read a quick article about guilt versus shame, and
Yeah.
what they said is guilt. You feel guilt when you know you have done something wrong, in line with your own values, as you say, or
Yeah.
somebody else's values, but you judge the action. And shame,
Mhm.
shame when you judge yourself, your whole being, based on one action that you took. So, for example, you've done something, you think, I've done this wrong, therefore I'm a bad person, la 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 la,
Mm.
and that feels your shame. But as you said, it's going to be a different for different people. Yeah.
I agree, but I have to say, I really like that, kind of really sums it up nicely. And it's also kind of a good way, or like a road sign, into what exactly we are feeling, and that guilt is to do with a certain action, right? And that it's rightfully so that shame just kind of goes through all of our layers, and it can cut really, really deep, where we just end up feeling like we're completely useless, for whatever reason we've been shamed.
So how do you think shame can affect us?
I think it can be devastating. I think it can stop us in our tracks. I think it can make us feel like we don't accept ourselves, and we really stop seeing our true selves, and then we basically stop caring for ourselves. And it can really make us see ourselves through these really awful lenses, where everything is just distorted and we just can't seem to find a place to fit in.
Okay, so we could cause a lot of self-judgment and
Mm,
self-negative judgment, low self-esteem potentially.
yeah,
Do you think it can lead to mental health problems?
I think so, for sure. If for example, with children, if they're brought up in a family where their parents constantly tell them, you need to do better in school, you need to do better grades, everybody's doing better than you are, you're a fool for not knowing this. What's the matter with you that you don't understand this? And, you shame kids that way and ridicule them for not being able to pick up something very quickly, or,
Mhm.
just do better. It's kind of like, dropping a little droplet of water in a rock. If you do it long enough, it will leave, a dent. And this is what happens. And then people kind of, enter, if we're going along with this analogy, people enter their adult lives thinking, there's something wrong with me, because I know that I can't fully believe in myself and do what I want to do, because all my life I've been told that I can't amount to anything because I wasn't a good
Mm.
student, for example. And then we enter our adult life by some miracle, thinking that we have gone through college, gotten jobs, and we just we're in it and doing, but still expecting, or even hearing very often, that we're not really that good.
I can definitely relate to, because all my school years I've been told that I'm quote unquote talented but lazy, and only in my adult life I realized that I was just not interested in school. And when I'm interested in something, I'm super focused on that, and I can learn.
Hmm.
And you know, reading first books from psychology when I was, 14, 15, I
Hmm.
could sort of read it in a jiffy. And I was like, really?
Hmm.
I can read a 300-page book? And it
Yeah.
was because I was reading something I was genuinely interested in. And when you have all these books in school which relate to nothing and they are about nothing, it's just like, not again. So I can relate to that. All my life, I was told that I'm talented, that I have potential, but I'm just lazy. And later on, I had to sort of reparent myself and reframe it that I'm not lazy. I'm just not interested in all the bullshit that you were trying to put in my head for 14 or 16 years. Um, so yeah, all the teachers watching this now will be like, ah.
I was just gonna say, what if you could go back in time and tell them what you
Can you imagine 7-year-old me? I'm not lazy. I'm just not interested.
exactly?
I don't think that would sit very well.
I don't think it would sit very well either. And I can't imagine it, unless you have a very kind of specific type of teacher who's very open to seeing children as individuals and trying to help them learn.
Yeah. But you see, reality is, for example, I could never understand physics
Hmm.
because if you go in that path, let me just share a story. I could never understand physics, for example, in school because it was only numbers and equations, and we never had any experiments, and nobody could really explain why this is that way, how it works. Now I'm really interested. I'm interested in quantum mechanics, quantum
Hmm.
physics, and all that stuff because it's really interesting. But when you have somebody who can explain that in relatable terms, who can show you experiment why this equals that and that,
Yeah.
it becomes a sort of visual representation, and it's not just a number or a letter that you have to memorize. So I was always rubbish at that in school, but now it's so
Yeah.
interesting.
But I think it's because, and this is not to diss on teachers. I know teachers do an amazing job, and it's an amazing career to have. I just think that somewhere along the line, some people forget that you're teaching others who might not necessarily have a knack for it, be interested in it. Students just view it as something to get through, and I
Mm,
think that they forget it's important to make it real.
yeah.
For you probably heard of Richard Feynman. He was an amazing, huge brain, but also an amazing teacher. He made it real. He explained it to people in a way that they could understand. And now that I'm even thinking, I remember in high school, we had a history teacher who, unfortunately, he passed away not so long ago. But he was amazing. He would tell us facts and that went way beyond the textbook about people taking parts in wars and certain strategies regarding things, and he would make it more real. What they liked to eat, for example, what they liked to wear, that they some of them were promiscuous, and so on and so forth, and it just made it a whole different learning process because like you said before, they're relatable.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so these are not just like names and dates on paper. There's actually real people behind this.
It's really awesome when you have a teacher who's genuinely interested in the subject that they teach, and they
Mm,
can sparkle an interest in you. Um,
yeah.
but I think it's really rare. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to all the teachers who are listening. We love you all, but
Mm.
it is what it is. We know that it's not your fault; it's the system. Wink, wink. Okay, let's go back to shame. We're going off topic a lot, but I don't really care. I don't mind. The question is, do you think that shame can be useful in any way?
Can it be useful in any way? That's a good question. I think it can be useful if we have a healthy approach. In that, I mean, if we are able to, when faced with shame and feeling certain things, if we're able to really take a look and say and ask ourselves a question, okay, is this what's happening? Is it really mine? This is something I like to use with my clients when defining uncomfortable situations and trying to move forward. That is when a certain feeling arrives. So, for example, shame comes in. I'm thinking, okay, is this what I'm feeling? Is it really mine? So it's kind of like an indicator, and if an indicator if we what we are feeling is it because of our own internal definition,
Hmm.
or is it because of some sort of learned behavior or learned definition that's been brought upon us, and we tend to see life this way? So if anything can come out of it, is just to come to the point where we need to really specify, is this according to my own values?
I like that sort of stopping for a second and asking yourself, is that really mine, or is somebody trying to impose it on me? If it's
Yeah.
shame or guilt or something else. Um, yeah, that's really good. I'm gonna use that.
Please. I have to tell you, a lot of my clients really like that, and it's one of these questions that's so simple, but it can really, really work wonders. And to the point where I remember in one session I asked the client, and it went quiet for about 15 minutes, didn't interrupt, just held the space. And it's a profound, profound question where you're able to also grab one of my favorite things ever as well in regard to psychology, a meta moment, where you can just relax, take that moment and see if what is happening is requiring me to react one way or another, make a choice,
Hmm.
decide what is going on here. But just using that question, what is mine? Is this mine? What is mine? It really, really brings you to this moment of being able to take responsibility and take power, and find your power in a situation that's uncomfortable. So, for example, in shame, if somebody said to you, you ate too much pizza, you know,
That's definitely true, especially in recent months.
that they'd be like, quoting Friends, a minute on the lips, forever on the hips.
Mm.
And you can respond, and that's, oh dear, yes, you're right, oh my god, or just hide your face and just go away, or just say, yeah, I like pizza, so.
Now I'm definitely past that stage in my life, and I'll be like, yeah, look at my belly, that's prosperity.
And
Yeah, exactly.
I just take two slices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just have a bit of fun with that. But not everybody is sort of self-aware to that point, and definitely we impose guilt and shame on each other. And from listening to you, I can't help thinking that a lot of
Mhm.
shame and guilt is related or come from judgment, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Because it's only when somebody imposes their own values or judge us according to what they think is right, or we start judging ourselves, I think only in those situations we feel shame and guilt.
I think so too, and I think it's a fascinating process that there's these moments where it doesn't really matter who. I mean, obviously we have people who we admire, who we look up to, who we like to take advice from, and so on and so forth. But sometimes when people express judgment, it's amazing how quickly we start to second guess ourselves.
Mm.
And at one point, you'll go into this kind of super defense mode. It's like, nobody's going to be talking shit about me while I'm here. You go for it, and you push back. However, that shame you take away with you, and then you sit over, later with yourself, and you sit at home and you're thinking, and you kind of feel that kind of weight. I don't know. I feel that feeling for me is always kind of like a weight that's, starts in my chest and goes down to my tummy. And it's important to recognize that sometimes when we feel these feelings, it might be because we still have some issues hanging on ourselves in
Mm.
that respect. And developing self-awareness is a lifelong process, and it changes
Yeah.
in every stage of life that we enter. For even going along with shame. So in my 20s, shame was different and
Mhm.
defined differently than it is now in my 40s. I used to be so ashamed of a lot of things, and people could really easily shame me. And now I have a lovely, I think I have a lovely, defense mechanism myself, that if I do something, for example, classic, you're walking down the street and you trip, or, you're drinking a coffee and it goes down your throat, instead of going down your throat, it goes down your neck, and you're walking around with a stain. Just laugh at myself. I laugh it off, and I find it's much more light and encouraging, and you just don't care that much anymore. Because, yeah, go on.
Yeah, I think it comes with age, isn't it? I used to be very insecure when I was younger. I used to be very skinny. I used to be quite shy, and as you can see, a lot has changed. But when you grow up, as you say, sense of humor is a great tool. It's a great coping mechanism. And when you get a bit older, when you pass your sort of 25, then your 30s, and you pass that sort of 30 something mark, you accept yourself more, and you don't care. Even if I go out and have a stain of coffee on my shirt, and people can point at me and laugh, I don't think I would care. It's just like, yeah, it's coffee. I just spill it. Just the way it is. Deal with it.
It happens.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
But to tell you the truth, I have never, ever in my life been faced, maybe, I don't know, maybe I was lucky, in a situation where I have kind of openly, oh dear, I have a stain, or whatever, I messed something up, and just open and honestly said something about it, that I have never, that some people have not related with that, and that resonate with them immediately. So, for example, I was picking up my son at school, this was ages ago, and one of the dads came in, and he was new, and we were having a chat, and I had a really big stain of orange juice actually on my shirt because I had spilled it on myself. And he looked at me, and I knew he was looking at it. I said, yes, I like a little bit of orange juice on my white t-shirt because I just think it brightens things up a little bit. And he was looking at me. He didn't say a word. And I'm like, oh, and it's like, shit, where's this going? Is he gonna walk away or whatever? Anyway, he unzipped his hoodie and showed me the biggest tomato sauce on his shirt and said, I just had lunch with my little boy. So, we kind of connected on that level. And again, I've never, ever, ever had a situation, whether it's been, I don't know, having trouble with a suitcase at the airport or whatever, anything, car trouble or whatever. When you're really, truly, you're okay with messing up, or you're okay with, not doing something perfectly, that people really pick up on that, and just, it's relatable because it's human.
Yeah, exactly. You show your human side, and it's easier to relate for other people to relate to you and connect with when you try to pretend that you're perfect and I'm always okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
can I just jump in quickly? I think the thing with judgment, I think the kind of key thing is, if we ease up on ourselves, we can really ease up on other people as well. I think we hold ourselves to such high standards, and or at least we try to, be the best versions of ourselves. But not in that respect that we work with what we have, but we have this ridiculously crazy expectation to be perfect all the time, and to look perfect, be perfect, succeed, and all. And therefore, if we don't do that, we just kind of jump into this mode of criticizing ourselves and being judgmental, and it just all goes wrong and ends up spiraling to being ashamed of not being able to do many things. Whereas if you kind of let it go, don't stress over it so much, learn to laugh about certain things, it's just so much easier to get to the next level. So yeah, okay, I messed up a little bit, fine, it was whatever, it was funny, somebody laughed at me, I said ha ha ha. If somebody's laughing at me because I spilled something, I'll just say, I'm glad I could make you laugh today. It's a good thing, and again, it's a funny interaction, and just on to the next. That's it.
It's usually not actually what you do, but how you deal with the aftermath that counts, isn't it?
Of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So before, you mentioned that when you were a young girl, there was quite a lot of shame coming up for you. And I wanted to ask you, what would sort of cause you to feel shame? What kind of things?
Now, or when I was a little girl?
When you were younger.
Oh God, I had so many insecurities that it was basically everything. I mean, from what I look like to, literally, Sam, anything. A little bit of background. When I was 6 years old, I left with my family and we went to live in the States. So before that, living in Poland in the early 1980s, um, being ever so slightly different because, for example, you were supposed to, you could leave the country at that time, which was very difficult. It was already a whole bunch of, comments and things that my parents must have done something or were getting kicked out. And so, leaving that with that was this kind of huge weight of, oh, something must be wrong. It's, I've always been pointed out she's the one that's leaving. Then having gone to the States and being the Polish girl, along with the other Polish kids, but we were always ever so slightly different because we weren't born there. To then when growing up, my hair got curly. So that was just a big major thing because all I ever wanted to do was just take an iron and straighten it out.
Come on, you
like
have awesome hair. Come on.
It was terrible. It was that moment where I kind of hit puberty and it went, poof, and it was short back then. I looked like one of those, what do you call it, those chia pet things, because it was really short. It was just, that was like, but mainly it was just because it was different. And I used to feel really, really ashamed because people would point that out. And then when we came back to Poland from the States, I was in the 6th grade. And this was a time, everybody was hitting puberty. And I mean, I literally wanted to wear hats all the time because I was so ashamed of my hair because it was different than everybody else's. And then it was the fact that I wasn't speaking Polish very as fluently as you would be expected to in the 6th grade. I had huge, and to tell you the truth, this was such a huge deal for me that I never really truly felt that I caught up like I should have. I had a huge gap in my math academic learning process due to what they did in the States versus what they did in Poland in the 6th grade. And I got so stressed that I was never going to catch up, that I don't really feel that I ever really did. And it was a huge, huge mental block for me to be able to learn that. And I always felt like I was just kind of, trailing behind everybody else. My handwriting was also different than everybody else's. My clothes were different because we had come from a completely different place, a completely different market.
From the land of the free.
Yes, and the home of the brave.
Yeah.
A totally different America back then, by the way, which when I think about it, it was a great time there, but I don't think it has anything to do with the way things are there at the moment. But so literally everything, every single thing it had gotten to a point where I just felt so stressed about everything and judged about everything that I kind of shut down and stopped responding to any kind of, comments, even to the point where I remember it was very difficult for me to accept a compliment. And I remember being in high school. I was in a really awesome high school. And if any of my friends are watching it, hello. It was a great time with great teachers and great people. And I remember more than one occasion where, the guys would come in and we would all say hello and somebody would say, "You look nice." And I was like, "Oh." And one of my friends said, "Why can't you just take a fucking compliment? Can't you just say thank you?" Oh, and it was kind of an eye-opener. And I was thinking, yeah, but if I say thank you, then maybe you'll think that I think too much of myself. And he's like, "No, it's just a thank you. I noticed that you look nice today. I like your sweater." Mm-hmm. That's it. And I started thinking that maybe there's a lot more to this than I thought, that there's a whole different side of this cycle. But yeah, as you can see, a lot.
So I think that when we are young, as you say, we care about the opinion of other people because we're developing ourselves. So there's many more things to be ashamed of or feel guilty about. But what about now? What kind of things do you feel ashamed of or guilty about? If you want to share,
Of course, I want to share, but I'm kind of thinking, what do I feel ashamed?
I'm asking because we sort of determine that when you grow up, you start caring about people's opinion a bit less. and you use more humor. You have a bit more distance to yourself. So I'm really curious, what would be the difference? What kind of things would make you feel ashamed now?
I think it would be if I did something, first of all, intentionally to hurt someone. That would definitely cause me to feel ashamed. And even unintentionally, I guess, because I really genuinely care about people, and I like to help, and I like to be there for people, and I think that that just if any course of my action were to hurt someone, that would really, really make me feel awful. Um, and I think it has more to do with actually doing things rather than with how I appear,
Hmm.
how what people's impression of me is in regard to the exterior, for example. Whereas a while ago that would have been, I'm not going to wear that because I don't, don't feel comfortable, and if I stand this way, then they might see some sort of back fat or whatever, that kind of stuff. But now it's more about, I guess, if I'm acting in a way that I'm not being authentic to my values, and
Okay.
I guess it would have to be around hurting people, or not being able to be there, for someone.
What would you say is a healthy way of dealing with shame?
A healthy way of dealing with shame. I was just reading a few things before we sat down today. And there is a wonderful, well, Brené Brown has tons of research, and she's done, I think, the world a load of good in regard to talking about shame and vulnerability. I think that what you would do, if it's okay, I hope we can do this. I'd like to read it because I think it best describes what to do.
No worries. If I go to prison for copyright infringement, you're gonna send me packages. Go for
I'll
it.
send you a care package, and I'll visit you when the whole COVID thing blows over. Don't worry about it. I'll bring pizza. I'll bring pizza.
Okay, cool. Deal.
All right. So, there's a saying that shame is the swampland of the soul.
Okay.
And what Brené Brown has said to that the purpose is not to construct a home and live there. It's to put on some galoshes and walk through and find your way around. And I think to me personally, that really resonates, because once we kind of get into a situation where we start to feel shame and guilt and judgment, and it's very easy to kind of set up a little camp in there and linger and wallow and think about, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Whether it's just the putting on the shoes and walking through it, it's just it really resonates that it's something that we can get through. So if we're in the moment, let's ask ourselves the question, what's happened? How did I get here? Why am I feeling this?
Hmm.
Is this serving me in any way? What is the lesson from this situation? And with that, kind of power through to forward, and just come to the point where, sometimes even if we can't really do anything about the whole reason of why we feel and why we feel ashamed. For example, we've hurt someone, and for example, we apologize, but they don't accept our apology. Just need to move on and understand that I've tried my best, and I just need to let it go and not linger.
Yeah, it's almost like we're going back to this idea of being okay with making mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. But if you think about it, there's this whole kind of stigma around making mistakes, and I know, because I've lived a lot of my life thinking that it's terrible to make mistakes, and you're not supposed to make any mistakes. Therefore, if you don't do anything, you don't make any mistakes, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That is just, that's a shit show waiting to happen, really, because you don't really get to experience anything. Whereas now, even with my clients, with my children, go make mistakes, learn, because the lesson that you learn from making a mistake is yours forever.
Yeah.
And it's also tailor-made to you.
And it's funny because when we grow up, for example, especially young guys are told not to fight, not to misbehave, and yada yada. But funny enough, you see those kind of people becoming the most successful. For example, if you look at Mark Wahlberg, he'll tell you, all the bad stuff he's done in the past. It's sort of in a way like a rite of passage, I would say. No, don't listen to me. If you're listening, no, that's not a rite of passage. But in a way, you just allow yourself to explore and make mistakes, and you learn. And when time comes and you mature a bit, you think, well, I don't want to be a dickhead anymore. I want to do something productive with my life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on, because I'm sorry, I interrupted you. It's
No,
apparently
you're the
a very
star of the
Polish
show.
thing to
Come
do.
on. I'm here just to ask questions.
I think the value in these lessons, but also the value in the experience that we let ourselves go through. It's priceless, even if sometimes when we're kids and we're teenagers, we kind of tend to mess up or get ourselves into situations that with hindsight necessarily think that it would be a good idea to ever do again. But the fact that we have that experience to look back on and then be a kind of warning sign, okay, so I've been through something similar and it's not a great place to be in. I wouldn't want to put myself in that situation again. And it's not only just because you hear it from somebody that somebody told you, it's because you've actually experienced it. So if you take the most simple analogy, children, if you tell a kid, don't put your finger in the fire, how many kids are actually going to take your word for it and not do that? They'll wait until you turn around and put that finger
more
in.
likely, isn't it? That's how
Yeah,
our
of
brain works.
course. Absolutely. And it's because it's curious. It's human nature to be curious and to try it out for ourselves. But then you have that specific kind of feeling of, I tried it and I know what it feels like to burn my finger in an open flame. I don't want to do it again.
Yeah, I've learned my lesson.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. That's how we learn. That's the quickest way to learn. So our relationship with failure and mistakes, I think it's not the greatest, because we feel like when you make mistakes and you fail at things, it's like you're doing something wrong. But actually, that is the quickest way to learn.
Sure,
The quickest way
absolutely.
to learn.
One of the things, if people come into coaching sessions being terribly afraid of failing at they have a specific goal in mind. For example, they want to get a dream job, and they are just paralyzed with fear that they'll never get it, and they'll be just a total failure. Their life will end if they don't get this job. And then we get into talking about what failure means for you, what's your experience with failure. And a lot of the times people don't actually have anything tangible to say about failure because they've done everything to get to the point that they haven't let themselves fail. So what I try and do with clients when we're working on this is to tell them, all right, go and fail.
Mm-hmm.
Your homework from session to session, you go and fail. But doing what? Something insignificant even, but the outcome has to be different than you would like it to be. Go and specifically fail. And it turns out that it's not as bad. I mean, obviously, if it's something that we really care about, we really want to happen, that's also a lesson to be learned. But more often than not, it's not as bad as we think if we look at it from a different perspective. So it's a learning opportunity. It's a growing opportunity, and it's okay to make these mistakes because then we learn for future references.
It's facing that fear, isn't it? It's the best way to get rid of fear. So if you're afraid of failure or making mistakes, go and make some on purpose. As you say, start with something insignificant. Don't go and crush your car.
Exactly. Yes.
Just something small, and realize that it's like, for example, my big thing is fear of heights. I don't know where it came from, but sort of in my 20s, I caught up with this idea that actually I'm not very good with heights. And the best thing is face your fear. The best way to cure your fear is to face your fear. And I did it a few times. For example, I went to Bristol to the suspension bridge, which is around 100 meters above the ground. And you feel fear, oh my God, I'm going to die. But then you cross the bridge and you think, well, I didn't die.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. I didn't die. It wasn't the end of the world.
Yeah, and on the way, actually, it's a quite nice view and a nice breeze. Let's never do it again.
Yeah,
No, I'm
exactly.
joking. I'm joking.
But
You do sort of bigger and bigger challenges. That's how you overcome fear, isn't it?
yeah, but it's completely leaving your comfort zone. But
Yeah.
I think that this is something that really needs to be underlined. Every time we take a step and we broaden our comfort zone, it comes with a price. And that's not something, again, to fear. It's a lesson to be learned, and a really, really valuable one, because every time we want to go out and achieve something, do something, learn something new, take on a different role in life, there's always going to be, a bright side and a dark side. And that's something, there has to be a balance. This is just the way life works. We have the good days and we have the bad days, and
Mm.
learning to balance these things out. But it's just the way it is. That's part of the package. We're all here. We all work in different ways, but everybody has to deal with that. Plus, it's also something that is not really talked about, that when we face our fears, and there have been tons of documentaries, a lot of people on YouTube talk about these things. Probably a lot of friends also can say. I remember having this discussion with a friend here in London, that he had a fear of the water, of being pushed into the water, falling into the water, and decided to face that fear. He now does these free dives where he goes in really deep without any tanks or anything. And the fear has changed into this amazing, I don't know if you can call it a hobby, maybe for the sake of the conversation, let's call it a hobby, where he has said that when he goes under, I'm not even sure how deep, but very, very deep, it's the most serene place on earth that you could possibly find, as well as learning to work with your body to be able to hold your breath for a really long
Mhm.
time.
I've noticed that it's the case quite often that people who face extreme fear, then
Mhm.
go the other way and they indulge in that activity, and
Yeah.
actually in a way that brings them peace. I think it comes from the
Mhm.
space of, I have been afraid of this thing for so many years, I have faced it, and I haven't died, nothing bad happened. um, I feel like it's related to this feeling of strength.
Mhm.
This is still related to my deepest fear, and I'm here embracing it, and nothing bad
Mm.
happens. Like, I think Alex Honnold, who's a free solo driver, free solo
Yeah.
climber, not diver.
Yeah.
I've seen a documentary about him, and he said the same, that in the beginning he was afraid of heights. Now, without any
Yeah.
ropes, without any support, he climbs the most extreme mountains in the world, which is crazy.
I think if anybody is to look for any kind of inspiration, it's to watch him. First of all, prepare for his free solo climb, El Cap, and the mindset that he has, and how actually the fact that we feel fear shouldn't be an obstacle not to do something.
Mm.
What it should be is a factor that we take into how much we want. I think, sometimes, now that when you were saying all this, I just kind of found myself thinking that, is actually fear a kind of, I don't know, a price or a trade-off that we feel for something that we really, really want, but we don't know how to get to, or we just don't know if we have the capabilities,
Yeah, could be.
you know? For I don't know, it just kind of bing popped into my mind at the moment.
Yeah, because we usually have fear around things that we really want to do. But it's
Yeah.
the fear of unknown, the fear of failure, the fear of being judged. But
Mm.
I can relate to that. When you try to change something in your life and you want to try new things, you will be afraid of them, and very often people just back down. Oh, I'm afraid of that, therefore that's not for me. This
Yeah.
is negative, this is bad, I shouldn't be doing that. Whether the opposite is true, if you're afraid of that thing that you really want, that means that this is the right thing, to step into your fear and go for it.
Absolutely. I'm just kind of thinking back to what you said in the beginning of, having moved away from home and getting a different perspective
Yeah.
around things. And oddly enough, this kind of links to the religion part of our conversation. I just actually remembered I was on my way to London, My husband actually was working here already, and me and the kids were still living back home, and his company was having a Christmas party, and they said, since you're moving, so come over. So I was at the airport in Warsaw, and I was waiting in security. All the days when you could wait in security at the airport with no mask, and those were the days. And I was I was waiting, and in front of me was a man dressed in black. And he was kind of, he wasn't facing me, so I couldn't really see what he was wearing in the front, but we were just kind of having a conversation. And then I said I was going to London for a Christmas party and so on and so forth, and that, I'm going to be moving there. And he said he's going there to visit a group, and he was kind of being kind of cryptic. And then after we had passed security, he turned around to get his stuff, and I saw that he was a priest. And he looked at me deep into my eyes and said, "You be careful there in London, because people that go to London tend to leave God behind." And I thought, okay,
yeah,
right. And that it felt a little bit scary. But what I took from that was that, in seeing my personal situation, is that I was able to leave behind the old stereotypical ways of thinking that I had become so accustomed to while living at home, and being really close to family. And I just was so in it that I didn't really take the time to think about, is it mine? Whereas sometimes taking a big leap and going out of your comfort zone, whether it's changing jobs, changing relationships, moving to a new country, it's kind of forced upon us, and we have to deal with that situation. And then it causes all sorts of really good changes.
That's a really weird thing to say from a priest.
It was really what I'm desperately trying to recall. Was it something I said in the conversation? Or maybe he just saw the devil in me. I don't know. I don't know.
The question could be: is it good or is it bad that you leave quote unquote God behind? Religion is something that we probably could talk about, on another episode for hours and hours. So let's not jump in there. I've done my sort of fair bit of thinking and research into religion, and let's just leave it there. What sort of advice could you give to people who have a lot of self-judgment? Because we established that a lot of shame can come from judgment and self-judgment. How can you say we could deal with self-judgment?
One of the things, and this is speaking as a human who tends to have these moments, with myself, I think we all do. The first thing when I feel I'm being too critical of myself, and this is not advice, but a suggestion, would be to take a look and ask yourself, would you ever talk to a good friend like that?
It's a good one.
Because we tend to be so hard on ourselves. And even if, we would see a friend coming in and struggling, or perhaps, objectively not being able to get something done, we never are so harsh. Even if we're giving somebody tough love, we still have a lot more compassion. So by asking yourself that question, you're actually trying to be kind and gentle with yourself, and showing yourself compassion, and kind of embracing a moment where you say, all right, I'm kind of struggling here. I'm going into that mode where, it's just this is all wrong today. Everything I touch is it's not happening today. I can't even look in the mirror because I don't look good. I don't feel good. It's just not happening. So really kind of stopping the harsh inner game that really tends to turn on with a flip of a lightning of a switch. It's just so immediate, that kind of self-critique that's in there.
It's what Les Brown said in one of his speeches. He said, "I believe that inherently we are negative. We think negatively about ourselves. So you have to take a conscious control over your self-talk to create a positive mindset." And from what you say, what's dangerous about the critical self-talk and thinking about, talking to yourself in a bad way, is that it has the potential to spiral down very quickly. is when you start, you made a mistake or something, and you start, oh my God, I'm bad, I'm this, I always make this mistake, I'm useless, I'm stupid, I'm ugly, blah, blah, blah. And you don't
Mm.
even realize, you find yourself, swimming in hell, proverbial hell, in the depths of the sort of the most negative thoughts that you can only think of yourself. And I have to say that I can relate to that, even though I'm somebody who went through a period of really heavy anxiety, panic attacks, substance abuse. I went through it, and
Mm.
now I know a lot about mental health. It still proves that nobody is immune to that. I'm still a human, and I still have these days when I just want to, when I just spiral down. And if you don't catch it soon enough, it can lead to really serious problems with your mental health, anxiety, depression, PTSD, depending on what it is, and any other thing.
Mm.
So what you say makes a lot of sense. It feels like in all of this, awareness is the key element.
Yeah, I was actually just gonna say that it's, and like I said before, it's a lifelong process. It's
Mm.
something that we kind of become used to. Okay, so this is how I deal with stuff. This is what I need. This is what I want, and so on and so forth. And then we kind of jump into another phase of our lives. And this is the part. This is something in regard to self-awareness to look out for when we tend to start to go into our specific toolkit to make ourselves feel better, and when we find that that isn't working for us anymore,
Mm-hmm.
that is a really good indicator. Okay, something has changed, right? What, I'm not sure what it is right now, but the fact that I was able to help myself cope with when my inner criticism was going into overdrive, and that took me to some pretty dark places, it's just not working for me anymore. And it's time to reevaluate. It's time to take a look at your values. Is everything still in line? It's just an ever changing process. But one kind of key thing to look at, and to, I guess, if I were to ever give any kind of direct advice, is to try, in respect to self-awareness, to try and look at yourself like you would through the lens of a camera, which means there are no emotions, there's no judgment, you just look at what you see. And kind of in that respect, is I'm having a bad day, for example, I don't feel well. And then kind of take it step by step and build on, okay, I don't feel well because, and looking at the fundamentals. Maybe I didn't drink enough, maybe I didn't eat enough, maybe I didn't have enough, I didn't get enough sleep, so on and so forth. And if just kind of ticking all the boxes and kind of getting to, and it's possible to get there. It's kind of similar to the process of, damn it, I lost my keys, where are they? And you start to think back, when's the last time I had them in my
Yeah.
hand? So on and so forth. But just giving yourself that kind of I guess, insight into what self-awareness really is. And it really is observing yourself in a specific moment. It's almost as if you could kind of have an out of body experience, step out of yourself and take a look kind of, from the side. Okay, I feel like this, I feel like that, and so on and so forth.
It's almost like when you feel really bad and you have a lot of self-judgment, it spirals out of control. You stop for a second and try to unpick it. Like, where is this coming from? Where
Mm-hmm.
is that coming from? This happened because of this and this and this. And I did that in the past, and usually find that it's something small that triggers you, but then you
Yeah,
connect all the other shitty things that happen, and all of a sudden, from a small problem, you have this massive problem in your head that annoys you and is eating you from the inside.
exactly. And a lot of this stuff is that we tend to link things,
Mm.
that in regard to past negative experiences, past hurts, things that we carry around. And sometimes it's the oddest combination of things, and it just pops into our heads and makes us just feel awful. It's kind of like the situation where, you wake up and you're really angry at your partner because you had a dream that she cheated on you.
Yeah.
What? But we laugh, but it's usually, like you said, it's usually really strangely connected. But to have that, I mean, I guess the key thing is, if you have that awareness, if you scratch that, if you practice that awareness, because it's a question of practicing it on a daily basis. If you practice that awareness, you're going to be okay. This is kind of the way that you'll always be able to navigate yourself. More or less, you'll get there, but you'll be okay if you practice that awareness on a daily basis.
Practice makes it permanent, as my trainer used to say.
Nice. See, I don't like it when people say practice makes perfect. I totally disagree with that. It doesn't. Absolutely. Done is better than perfect, for example.
We usually hide insecurities behind perfection. I want to do this, but I'm waiting for the perfect moment. I'm working on this project, but I can't show anybody until it's perfect. But the reality is that there's underlying fear. So you're afraid of how they're going to react, or that it's not good enough, or whatever.
Yeah. Because perfect is a veil for not doing. And I think, we can all agree. I read that recently on LinkedIn, and it just rings so true. It seems that perfectionism is this wonderful cloak of invisibility that we don't get things done because they're never going to be super awesome. Whereas, does it really matter if it's super perfect? I mean, it's better to just, I'm not saying half-ass things, always if you can, try your best, but it's about the flow of moving forward and being able to even achieve small amounts of success rather than, whoa, the big load.
Yeah. What a journey we've had. We started with shame. We went through a schooling system. We told of a few teachers. Yeah, we probably are not welcome at the church anymore.
I'm personally okay with that.
Yeah, and we ended up in perfectionism. Just to finish off, I want to ask you about what are you up to these days? What have you got going? How can people find you if they want to connect? This is your few minutes to plug something in. 3, 2, 1, go.
Oh my God, the elevator pitch. Well, what I'm doing is I'm running my coaching practice, and I have one-to-one sessions with clients, which I absolutely love. The best way to find me at the moment is through my website, annalampart.com. And I have big plans to have more of a web presence in regard to doing start up my blog, but also to start recording things. And hopefully this experience here will give me a huge boost, kind of more internal boost, to be able to go out and do that. So if you want to get in touch, please visit my website and you can send me a message.
We're going to put some links into your website and your social media in the description if somebody will be watching this video. So yeah, you can find Anna. She's awesome. She has great curly hair, and she's a very friendly, awesome coach. Anna, thank you so much for your time today. I had a blast, even though we were going off topic a lot. But that's the whole idea for me behind the recording a podcast, is having a really sort of organic, off the script sort of conversation. So I feel personally like we had a really good, deep, quality conversation. What would you say?
I do too, and I have to say that I really enjoy going in vast directions and then kind of making specific links at the most unexpected moments. And I just think that when you let the conversation free flow, it just opens up new horizons. That's why I'm always excited for such situations.
I think, thinking back to sort of whenever we chat, because we chat quite often on Zoom, I think it's always the case. We start with something and we just talk about weird, subjects about life and spirituality and psychology and coaching and whatnot.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I really, really, truly value is that even if one of us says, where was I going with this? That never really stops us from going even further.
Yeah, doesn't matter. Let's keep talking. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
because there's a
Well,
lot
yeah, but
to be said.
there's no expectation of anything. It's just about, being able to come into a space. And this is much like being with with a good friend, or even in a coaching, or even any kind of professional relationship. It's about creating space for each other to be able to speak freely and communicate,
Absolutely.
that's where the really authentic connections are made.
Absolutely. What a beautiful way to end. So thank you again. Thank you again for your time. I enjoyed the conversation. And thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a blast.
Awesome. Take care and all the best.
Take care to you too. Bye.